This video is all about sleep. And sleep is the one thing that we should all know that we really can't cheat and we can't get away without. But how many of us actually wake up feeling rested when we wake up? Rejuvenated and kind of ready to take on the day. Because it's thought that around 2/3 of people actually fail to get that magical 8 hours a night. And we all know the importance of it. When we regularly sleep less than 7 hours per night, our body's defense is lower, we don't repair in our sleep, which is known as autophagy, and ultimately we speed up the rate at which we age. So it's also been shown that low sleep has been linked to Alzheimer's, and blood sugar issues, cardiovascular disease, and strokes. But on the plus side, we do know all the amazing benefits from sleep and how we repair all of our body, digestive systems, and other areas in the body during this time frame. We're also aware now of what's known as the glymphatic system, which is the lymph system within the brain, which is really the cleaning of the brain whilst we sleep. And sleep helps us mop up our dying or dead cells, so it enriches brain function. It allows us to improve our memory, make better decisions for when we are awake. And it allows the immune system to reboot, if you will, fighting off diseases as we dream, simultaneously balancing our glucose levels, monitoring our hunger levels, and keeping an eye on the gut function and health kind of for good measure. Now, diet is something that we often talk about, and now also in these videos we mention light. But what's more important than all of this, without a doubt, is sleep. Because if there's one thing that you can improve upon, it's sleep that's going to have the biggest bang for your buck effect on your health. So it really is the biggest pillar of healthcare, and every cell in the body will suffer for every short night's sleep that you get. Because what you cannot do is catch up on sleep. Once it's been lost, it's been lost. It doesn't matter if you get more time the next day. It really doesn't work like that, and hopefully this video is going to explain a little bit more about that. So sleep has so many benefits that actually we're still unraveling what they are, because science is really just beginning to understand the process of deep sleep. Now, we've talked about our body clocks, first of all, knowing when it's time to sleep, the circadian rhythm, the cycles of light and dark, and this is all really, really important to understand. We talked about how light is the main trigger for the body clock in the brain to determine that circadian rhythm. But there are also many other triggers, one of them being the wakefulness during the day, the timing of the sleep, and how these two things work together. So the sleep hormone is melatonin, okay? And melatonin is only produced when it's dark. So if light is hitting the eye, you're not going to be making as much melatonin as you should do. So it's really the kind of messenger of darkness telling us that it's time to sleep and rest, okay? But what it doesn't have any control over is the sleep itself. It's produced in the absence of light. So when it's high, it allows the beginning of the sleep cycle, but has no control over the sleep itself. So this is why melatonin supplementation, as many people nowadays do, is not really the answer to better sleep. Because once sleep begins, melatonin is lowered kind of throughout the evening, and by morning, with the morning light, it decreases in an inverse relationship to the stress hormone known as cortisol, which is at its highest in the morning. And this is what wakes us up in the morning. Okay, so the absence of melatonin by morning is part of our signaling to know that it's morning, because this light is present, okay? So there are two triggers for sleep. There's the circadian rhythm, there's the natural cycle of the body clock, and then there's the melatonin, the hormone production when it's dark, okay? So how do we know if we're getting enough sleep? Well, really simply, when you wake up in the morning, could you fall asleep or go back to sleep by 10 a.m? That's the first clue. And secondly, do you need to self-medicate with caffeine, coffee or what have you, before noon? So if the answer to either of these is yes, then you may well be sleep deprived and really need to do something about it. So we're going to go through all the steps of kind of what to do in those situations. So the next thing to discuss is really, well, what is sleep? So sleep is a state of rest and repair. It's a deeper loss of our awareness to the outside world, or even a loss of consciousness, some people would describe it as. And it's in this state of unawareness that our brain still receives all the same information it does when we're awake, except now we block that information from becoming conscious. So the gatekeeper and pit stop of the brain, which is known as the thalamus, stops us from recognizing the sounds and smells and information while we sleep. So it's like a temporary shutdown of our main senses in order for the brain to change its state, to be able to rest, and for the brain waves to be able to change. And so sleep is broken down into different types. We have what's called non-REM and REM, and this stands for rapid eye movement. So every sleep cycle lasts around 90 minutes, and it starts with non-REM. And then every 90 minutes, a new phase of sleep begins, which changes as the night goes on. So REM, rapid eye movement phase, is classed as the lightest phase of sleep, sort of like I was just drifting off, super relaxed phase. And this is really the early stages. And then non-REM is broken down into 4 phases of sleep, kind of stage 4 being the deepest level of sleep possible, 1 being the lightest. And so the first half of the night is dominated by non-REM deep sleep, with the latter half being more dominated by REM light sleep. So deep non-REM sleep is like the cleanup act. It finds and removes any unknown connections in the brain, which are no longer relevant or unnecessary. And then the latter REM sleep then helps strengthen those connections that we need. So it's really this perfect combination of those two things. And it's really important to understand how these things occur, because it really influences your understanding of how much sleep you need to get. And this is the reason why we cannot cheat sleep. So say, for example, you go to bed at 1 a.m, we're watching TV, working or doing something, and we still manage to get up at our normal 7 a.m. time. So we had 6 hours sleep instead of the normal 8 hours that we require. And this means a 25% sleep loss. Okay, so you might think, well, not the end of the world. But the issue is actually that you've lost 75% of your deep non-REM sleep phase, but had all the REM sleep that you needed. So this is the problem. It's 2 separate cycles that we need to get a good balance of. We simply just can't get away with having less sleep than we require, because these things happen at certain times. So if you're still hanging in there with me, we're going to go a little bit deeper and talk about sleep in some more detail, because I think it's really important, and I think hopefully it'll really help you. So we can also look at how we sleep as humans. We tend to have one nighttime batch of sleep, if you will, where we sleep solidly for a certain amount of time. And this is known as monophasic sleep, i.e. one phase of sleep in a 24-hour period. But it's not uncommon for people to have an afternoon nap, siesta, or something of a similar variety in communities and certain areas of the world. And this brief 30 to 60 minute nap is seen throughout the world in different tribes and is known as biphasic sleep, or sleep in 2 phases. Now, the problem that society faces today is that, frankly, we never stop. Okay, we do not go to sleep at dusk, but instead, or sunset, we go to sleep when all of our jobs are done and we allow ourselves to rest, waking up at the same time, irrelevant of what time we finally manage to drift off. And it would seem that for the majority of Western culture, we cheat our first stage of deep non-REM sleep. We miss this phase, okay? And we all get as much REM sleep as we require, but remember that can often be the lighter phase. So we stay up late getting all the work that we need to do done, or think we should stay up because we didn't have a chance to relax yet, sacrificing that first stage of sleep for another hour in front of the TV. So what can we do? Well, it's actually true that we are genetically wired to be biphasic sleepers. So that common afternoon slump, that's the natural window that your brain is telling you to rest up. It's time for a rest. So the post-lunch slump, which may be blood sugar related, should and can be nap time, like it is for these many cultures around the world. And that's what our DNA is potentially hardwired for. But for those of you who are watching this who are still working hard in your working careers, in daytime hours, and so it simply isn't feasible to grab a 60-minute sleep in the middle of the day. But if you're in a place where you can maximize that, it may be a real health benefit for you, and it can be as long as, short as 13 minutes. Has been shown to be the amount of time required for some kind of power nap to just get a kind of shut down of the brain and back up again. So the next thing to talk about is sleep and aging, because our sleep needs, types and quantities change as we age, and we want to give you the best advice possible here. So we know that as adults, sleep is often much more disorganized in adult life compared to childhood. And it seems that as we age, many elderly individuals are unable to sleep as well. Now, this might be due to changes in their day-to-day life, or other environmental factors, medications, pre-existing conditions, or other issues too. But this lack of sleep in the elderly is chronic and may be part of the reason why you believe that we degenerate rapidly with age. So it's a myth that you need less sleep as you age. In reality, we need just as much sleep as we do throughout our entire lives. But it just gets a lot harder to get the amount that we need due to natural changes in our biology as we age. The biggest change that we see into your 40s and beyond is the quantity of this deep non-REM sleep that we get. So 60 to 70% will be reduced it'll be that much reduced compared to teenage life, and could be up to 70, 80, 90% of that will be lost. And so this deterioration in the amount of deep non-REM sleep is a huge factor in the deterioration of health as we age. So it's really vital that we go through the important checkpoints in the tips section towards the end to maximize your sleep potential. And the second factor is the sleep changes as we age is that we see this kind of broken upness of sleep, and we tend to wake up more during the night, whether it would be due to the need to urinate or for other reasons also. And due to this, elderly individuals suffer in kind of sleep efficiency. Not getting the required dosage can really have a big effect. And research shows that the lower your sleep efficiency score, the worse your physical health is. Depression increases, energy lowers, and cognitive function decreases. And finally, a really important note is that as we age and as our circadian rhythm shifts, our sleep timing changes. So as we age, our peak melatonin production becomes earlier into the evening. So what this means is that as we age, we need to get to sleep earlier to maximize the sleep that we can get and the quality and the quantity really of that sleep. So our body clock shifts backwards, okay? So if we fail to do this, we fail to go to sleep earlier as we age. And, what tends to happen is people tend to kind of nap in the evening, falling asleep in the chair. We inadvertently are more likely to get insomnia as we don't have the same need to sleep when we finally get to bed. So because this sleep time shift has occurred, and it doesn't matter if you've napped or not, it will try to wake you up then at 4 to 5 a.m. in the morning, and you'll find that you're going to want to get up earlier as you age. So it leads to a build-up of sleep debt because you're going to bed late, but you're always being forced to wake up earlier, okay? Which obviously is going to infinitely affect your health, cognitive function, and longevity. But as we've said, this is not a debt that we can repay by sleeping more the following night, but we still get the penalties for that debt, okay? So what's really, really important as we age is we go to bed earlier because the body clock has shifted backwards, and it's going to force us to get up earlier in the morning so that you maintain your deep non-REM sleep, okay? Because we've already discussed that naturally we lose this deep non-REM sleep as we age, so it becomes imperative that we don't lose out on any of it because the quality isn't going to be there just biologically. So we need to maximize what we can get, okay? Because it's vital for your memory, cognitive function, okay? And there's a huge link between memory loss, forgetfulness, and aging. And it's due to the loss of this deep non-REM sleep. And we know that this happens because the region of the brain that governs sleep is the same one that is majoritively declining as we age naturally. And the theory behind this is the development of these protein plaques, which are known as beta amyloids. And so these are proteins that build up in the brain as we age and are one of the key factors in the development of diseases like Alzheimer's. In Alzheimer's, the disruption of sleep and deep sleep is really greatly affected because these beta amyloid proteins are toxic to neurons, killing brain cells when they're present. And so therefore it's this really kind of vicious cycle, because the less non-REM sleep we get, the more easy it is for the plaques to build up. So what do we do? Well, one of the most important and first things that you need to do is avoid artificial light at night. And you can see the light video in this section to learn more about that. But the use of blue blocking glasses in the evening, particularly those that are orange tinted, or as soon as the sun goes down, is imperative if you're going to make any kind of melatonin, which is important to trigger the sleep cycle. So avoidance of screens and TV in the evening, the use of incandescent bulbs or candle light instead of bright white artificial light can be really, really important. First of all, to try and aid in this sleep cycle. The second thing is to supplement with magnesium, which is really a kind of chronic epidemic in the UK, along with vitamin D. And it can be really helpful to kickstarting this kind of sleep hygiene. High stress really has an impact on your magnesium levels in the body, and it's a mineral that is used for many, many functions. What you can do is take some form of kind of all-in-one mineral, like a fulvic humic mineral. You can go on Amazon and search for fulvic acid or fulvic humic minerals, in which case you're kind of getting your selenium, your zinc, your magnesium all in one, which can be a really, really nice way to do it. Or you can even just get some magnesium oil that you kind of rub on the feet before you go to sleep. And the use of other kind of natural remedies to try to calm the nervous system down before going to sleep. It's no coincidence that any mist sleep spray you put on your pillow has lavender in it, because it calms the nervous system down. So reducing the stress into that evening period and actually learning to shut off and get away from work mode is really, really important. But equally as important as avoiding artificial light in the night is getting a good amount of morning sunlight to make that body clock as accurate as possible, and getting morning UV light into the eyes really sets the tone for the day. Okay, so that's really, really important. And then, as simple as it sounds, is actually having the same routine. The brain works on routine, and so creating a routine whereby you do the same things before you go to sleep. And it can be silly things, okay, at this time I start working, then I read for half an hour, then I clean my teeth. It just tells your brain, when you get used to that habit and into those routines, that okay, well, now's the time that I sleep. As long as you've avoided the artificial light and you've got enough melatonin, it should be another thing that triggers this calming down of the system towards building this new habit of sleep. And so there are a few things that you want to be careful of and make sure that you do in order to kind of get there, so to speak. So we need to make sure that we stop eating 2 or 3 hours before bed to allow digestion to finish, and so sleep can be ready to occur. We need to make sure that there's no bright lights at least 2 hours before bed, or even better, avoiding artificial light as soon as the sun goes down. Caffeine needs to be avoided for the 5 hours before going to bed. Electronics should be shut off at least an hour beforehand, and you should need to employ different, more calming activities. Maybe it might be some light stretching, some reading, just conversation, with your partner, and use of meditation-based apps or hypnotherapy can be really, really powerful ways to just calm the system down. We can't expect to go from 1,000 miles an hour, go up to bed and just fall asleep. And people will say, oh, well, my mind's still working. But you haven't told your brain that it's the end of the day. So you need that routine to start to kind of shut things down towards the end of the day. You can also just do some silly things where you keep a notebook and you write, okay, this is the big thing that I need to get done tomorrow. Many productivity research articles now suggest that just getting 3 things written down for what you want to achieve the next day, and one of them being what's known as the highlight. So this is the one non-negotiable thing that you want to achieve that day, and 2 other kind of lesser priority tasks really set the tone for the next day where, okay, I'm just going to get that one highlight done, 2 other things, and I'm good. And then other things to kind of consider within your bedroom or wherever you sleep at night is the temperature. You know, ideally that temperature needs to be 18 to 22 degrees Celsius for sleep to occur. So it might be that a cooler shower or sleeping with the window open is best just to keep the temperature correct. We all know that in a heat wave we all struggle to sleep because it's simply too hot. The body is too hot to sleep. Okay, it's really, really important. And making sure that the room is pitch black is super important. So the use of a good quality sleep mask is quite important, or blackout blinds, because any form of light that goes into the eye, remember, is telling the brain that it's still daytime. So it needs to be pitch black, it needs to be cold enough, and you need to be wound down for the evening. So use these sleep hygiene tips, and any problems, just let us know.